Under the brilliant, shimmering lights of a grand television studio in the heart of Hollywood, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation and the faint scent of hairspray and excitement. The audience was a sea of smiling faces, their applause echoing against the high ceilings as the famous theme music began to swell. From Hollywood, the announcer proclaimed with a voice like velvet, "It is the Newlyweds game." The cameras panned across the stage to introduce the stars of the afternoon, the four couples who had recently embarked on the long and winding road of matrimony. The first couple to be introduced stood with radiant smiles. These two had exchanged their sacred vows exactly 15 months ago. They were Lydia and Blake Shellhammer, looking every bit the picture of early domestic bliss. Beside them, the next couple stood hand in hand, having tied the knot 22 months ago. They were Carrie and Michael Borman, their eyes reflecting a shared history of nearly 2 years. The third couple had walked down the aisle 24 months ago, marking 2 full years of partnership. They were Terry Joe and Jeff Slater. Finally, the fourth couple had traded rings 15 months ago, just like the first. They were Dia and John Langston, appearing nervous yet eager for the challenge ahead. Then, with a flourish and a wave that could charm the entire nation, the legendary star of the Newlywed Game stepped onto the stage. Bob Eubanks beamed at the crowd, his presence commanding the room with professional ease. He offered a warm hello to everybody and welcomed them to the show, giving a special and personal greeting to the 4 brave couples sitting before him. He asked if they were ready to play the game, and the energy in the room shifted into high gear. Bob suggested a plan of action. He asked the ladies to depart for a soundproof room, leaving the husbands alone on stage to face the initial interrogation. Once the wives had safely exited, Bob turned his attention to the gentlemen. He explained that the first round would consist of 5-point questions. The goal was simple yet difficult. Each husband had to predict exactly how his wife would answer the same question upon her return. If the answers matched, the couple would earn 5 points. The stakes were high, for the couple with the most points at the end of the show would win a fabulous second honeymoon. Bob checked if they were ready, and though they seemed slightly apprehensive, he introduced a special guest to help set the scene. A woman named Victoria walked out onto the stage. She was striking and graceful, and her appearance immediately caused a stir among the men. Blake, in particular, could not contain his surprise, letting out a series of impressed sounds. Bob then presented a hypothetical and humorous scenario. He asked the gentlemen to imagine that they woke up in the middle of the night to find Victoria in bed next to them in the place where their wives should be. The question was specific. Exactly how long would their wives say it would take them to file a missing persons report? John was the first to speak. He mentioned that his wife was currently pregnant, noting that he would immediately notice the difference in her physical presence. However, Bob urged him to stick to the timeline. John hesitated and then suggested it would take about 1 second, though he finally settled on the answer of 1 minute. He insisted that he would call the authorities immediately. Michael was next. He looked at Victoria and then admitted with a grin that it might take him maybe 1 week. The audience laughed at his honesty. Blake was even more relaxed about the situation, suggesting that it might take him as long as 1 year to report his wife missing. Jeff, trying to find a middle ground, decided that it would definitely take 1 long day. Bob thanked Victoria for her assistance and moved on to the next inquiry. The second question moved into the realm of science, or at least a husband's version of it. Bob asked what their wives would say the husbands believe is scientifically wrong with all women. Michael was confused at first, repeating the question back to Bob. Eventually, he concluded that his wife would say he thinks women nag too much from a scientific perspective. Blake took a more academic but equally lost approach, mentioning the differences between the right brain and the left brain before admitting he really did not have a clue. When pressed, he suggested that his wife would say he thinks women are too uptight. Jeff believed his wife would say he thinks women think too much and should simply go with the flow. John claimed his wife would say he thinks women are too bossy. Bob noted that John was the same man who claimed he would report his wife missing in only 1 minute, calling him a very smart man indeed. For the final 5-point question of the round, Bob turned the conversation toward the topic of romance and passion. He asked if their wives would say they wished their husbands would add more spice, more appetizers, or more specials to their evenings of passion. Blake and Jeff both chose specials. John decided that his wife would say they needed more spice. Michael was confident that his wife would want more specials. With the predictions recorded, the show went to a commercial break, promising to reunite the couples and see how well the husbands truly knew their partners. During the break, the television audience was treated to advertisements for popular shows, reminding everyone that daytime was meant for play and entertainment. When the show returned, the ladies were back on stage, seated next to their husbands who held cards containing their secret predictions. Bob welcomed them back and prepared to see if the couples could find common ground. He reintroduced Victoria to the ladies, explaining the hypothetical scenario about the missing persons report that had caused so much discussion earlier. Terry Jo was the first wife to answer. She guessed it would take her husband 5 minutes to try to find her. When Jeff revealed his card, which said one long day, Terry Jo was playfully shocked and embarrassed. Lydia was next. She believed Blake would report her missing within 10 seconds. When he revealed his answer of 1 year, the audience erupted in laughter. Lydia remarked that a year was a very long time, while Blake joked that a year goes by quickly when you are having fun. Carrie was certain Michael would say 1 second, but she was dismayed to find out his answer was 1 week. She jokingly suggested that someone should call a cab for him. Dia thought John would say 1 second, but his answer of 1 minute was close enough to show a strong connection, even if it was not a perfect match. The next question regarding the scientific flaws of women brought about some of the most memorable moments of the evening. Lydia gave a very unusual answer, suggesting that Blake thought women had surgical enhancements that made them float in swimming pools. Bob was taken aback by this specific and strange response. He asked her if she floated, to which she replied that she did not because she was flat. Blake's actual answer was that women were too uptight, which was quite a departure from Lydia's theory. Carrie correctly predicted that Michael would say women nag too much, earning them 5 points. Dia also found a match, correctly guessing that John thought women were too bossy. Terry Jo suggested that Jeff thought women did not have their priorities straight, but Jeff's card revealed his belief that women think too much. The final question of the round regarding the evening of passion revealed a significant disconnect between the couples. Carrie, Dia, Terry Jo, and Lydia all unanimously wished for more appetizers in their romantic lives. However, their husbands had predicted that they would want more specials or spice. None of the couples earned points in this round, leading to a humorous discussion about the lack of romance. Terry Jo complained that things were always the same and boring, blaming it on Jeff's love for football and his tendency to treat their time together like a game with a halftime and a 2-minute warning. Lydia confessed that her work and school stress made it difficult for her to wind up for romance, suggesting that she needed her husband to help her get into the right mood. As the game progressed into the next round, the point values doubled to 10 points each. The husbands were sent away, and it was now the wives' turn to make predictions. Bob asked if their husbands would say they were mostly right-handed, left-handed, or ambidextrous when it came to the art of romance. Carrie and Lydia both claimed their husbands were ambidextrous, with Lydia humorously suggesting that her husband could use everything he wanted. Terry Jo said Jeff was left-handed, while Dia believed John was right-handed and had all the right moves. The next question was a bit more daring. Bob asked the wives to name the last name they had uttered in bed other than their husband's name, whether before or since the marriage. Lydia initially said she had never done such a thing, but under pressure, she provided the name Chambers, noting that he was a man from her past who was now deceased. Terry Jo said the name Joey with a wide smile. Dia said the name Jonathan, and Carrie mentioned a man she called Boney Tony. Finally, the 25-point bonus question arrived. Bob asked the wives to name their husband's favorite airline. Dia chose Trans World Airlines. Carrie and Terry Jo both selected Southwest. Lydia went with United Airlines. With all the predictions made, the husbands returned to the stage for the final reveal. The atmosphere was tense as they began to compare the answers. Blake confirmed he was indeed ambidextrous in romance, matching Lydia's prediction and earning 10 points. Michael, however, claimed he was right-handed, missing a match with Carrie. John also said he was ambidextrous, but since Dia had predicted he was right-handed, they failed to score. Jeff claimed to be ambidextrous as well, but Terry Joe had said he was left-handed. When it came to the names mentioned in bed, the confusion continued. Michael could not recall his wife ever mentioning another name, but Carrie had said Tony. John guessed the name Kenneth, but Dia had actually said Jonathan. Jeff managed to match Terry Joe's answer of Joey, earning 10 points. Blake also found a match with Lydia when he correctly remembered the name Chambers, explaining that it was the last name of a judge they knew. The game concluded with the high-stakes bonus question about the airlines. Jeff and Terry Joe were in last place with 0 points, but they correctly matched Southwest, bringing their total to 25. Michael and Carrie also matched Southwest, catapulting them into the lead with 30 points. John and Dia failed to match, as John guessed Delta while Dia had said Trans World Airlines. Finally, Blake and Lydia needed a match to win, but Blake guessed Delta while Lydia had chosen United. The cheers of the audience reached a crescendo as Bob Eubanks announced the winners. Michael and Carrie Borman were the grand prize winners of the Newlywed game. Their reward was a magnificent second honeymoon to the Caribbean, specifically to the Spice Island Beach Resort on the beautiful Grand Anse Beach in Grenada. The description of the resort, with its luxurious accommodations and intimate setting, left everyone in the room dreaming of a tropical getaway. Bob thanked all the couples for their participation and their honesty, wishing them all long and happy marriages. As the credits began to roll and the music played one last time, Bob waved goodbye to the viewers, ending another successful and heartwarming episode of the game that celebrated the unpredictable journey of love.